Hey everyone, this is James from TDB bringing another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be talking about a couple ways that you can basically drink a lot of different tea. And so sometimes I get asked or referenced about this a bit, about how I can drink so many different teas, sample so many different things. You can check it out on my.tdb.org. A lot of people are just one tea a day people. Nothing wrong with that, but I personally enjoy drinking and trying a lot of different tea. I think everyone that's probably watching this video can relate to some extent about kind of different phases of tea drinking. One of those phases is kind of the more exploration phase. And a lot of people have this when they get started of just, wanting to try a lot of different stuff. I think it's healthy. I think it's good. I think it's exciting as well. But one thing I've realized about myself is, I will go through these phases and I will go into them again at some point. I just simply enjoy trying different types of tea, different brands and things like that. It's something that I get a kick out of. Even if I don't end up loving the brand in the end, I like that sort of exploration thing. It's not something that I want to be doing 365 days of the year, definitely not, but it's something where I will get interested in trying like teas from Balhoshiang or Baichatong or different places that haven't been as covered in the West, and it's just kind of fun and interesting. I may not like the tea in the end, but I enjoy that, just part of that exploration process. So understanding that about myself, I think is important because I do want to try different stuff. I don't want to be held captive with just trying the same 10 teas, just in some sort of rotation. I think in some ways, so to drink a lot of teas, I think one way is to know the purpose of your session. If your session, the purpose of it is to enjoy a tea, I think you're going to approach it very differently if your approach is to try to learn about the tea and you evaluate the tea. If you're trying to learn and evaluate about the tea, you don't necessarily need to savor it or sit with it or take your time as much as you would in kind of the enjoyment context. So for me, at least, I'm talking specifically about trying to evaluate a bunch of different teas. I think that's probably the case where you would want to drink the most. And if you have looked at how many sessions I sometimes do on my.tdb, you'll see that sometimes I can crank through a lot of teas in a day. And that's not because I am drinking them all the way or whatnot, but I'm using all kinds of tricks to get through as many as I can. So first off, there's a couple, very basic ones that I think have more to do with like kind of lifestyle or whatnot, and less to do with the tea itself directly. One is to start early. Tea is caffeinated. It makes sense to get going quickly. For me, at least, there's one day of the week where I don't have to take care of my daughter early and I have the place to myself. So on these days, I can really start to drink tea pretty in earnest at something like 8 a.m. So these are great days for me to do kind of big sample runs or whatnot. Another thing that I try to be very diligent about, especially on big tea days, is to exercise, go on a run. I think that is very helpful for me, at least, for my body to kind of process through what can be a bit of an extra caffeine. Okay, so on to the tea. I think the biggest thing that you can do is simply to quit early. You do not need to steep every tea to the end. It's definitely not necessary, and if you are done with the tea, if the purpose of your session is to evaluate a tea and you feel like you've already done enough, whether it is 5 steeps, 6 steeps, or just 3 steeps, you do not need to finish it. Quit early. I think this is like the biggest advice. It's like, how do I finish 8 teas in a day? Well, maybe like 7 of them were teas that I decided that they were not very good and not for me, and so I dumped them after the 3rd steep. And you basically just want to cut corners wherever you can. If you think about how you do kind of a group session, you have a session with someone else, and you can both sip on small cups. Well, you don't necessarily need to throw that out if you are having tea on your own. While I absolutely do not recommend underfilling vessels, I think that's a way to have heat loss, but you can brew in a small gaiwan and you can fill up this cup, and rather than drinking the whole thing, you can sip until you feel like you have a good idea of what this steep is like, and then you can dump it and move on to the next steep. And so, some of these sessions that I'm doing, I get enough of a feel off of just 5 steeps or 4 steeps where I've sipped maybe a third of the cup rather than the full thing. And that way I'm not overloading my bladder, I'm not overloading my whole system with caffeine. So there's a lot of little corners that you can cut. And it becomes a little bit tricky, especially when you are a newer drinker, because as a newer drinker, you probably have to tip your toes in a little bit more than someone with more experience, whether it's myself or someone else with even more experience than me has to. So I feel that for a lot of teas, I can make pretty quick judgments. Is it possible that I could be off? Yes, absolutely. But I try to do my best to get as much of a judgment as I can without totally destroying my body, because it does suck to devote a lot of time to tea that is just not particularly good. So I do recommend people just think about each cup that they're drinking and how much of it they actually want to drink. So yeah, those are kind of my tricks to drink a lot of tea, especially in terms of evaluating tea. I think if you're trying to enjoy tea, you probably don't want to drink like 5 teas in a day anyways. So for me, at least, I would stick with just, an ideal tea day for me is something like 2, maybe a third capper, maybe something old or something like that. So yeah. So thank you all for tuning in, and let me know if you agree or disagree, and I will see y'all next time. Cheers.